Welcome back to the Young Turks. It's time now for the Power Panel. I can just feel the power surging in here. It's unbelievable. Liz Winstead is back. She is a comedian and co-creator of The Daily Show. She's a good friend of mine. She hired me on The Daily Show back in the 20s. When the show was just being developed before Jon Stewart was there.
When the Teapot Dome scandal broke.
Also live from Washington, D.C., Amanda Terkel. Of course, she's a senior political reporter for the Huffington Post. And Ari Berman, contributing writer for The Nation magazine, live from New York City. Thanks for being with us, Power Panel. Do you feel the power?
Totally.
Oh, yeah. Big
Okay.
time.
I can feel it from you guys, too. So, listen, I have a little gut reaction now, and I know what y'all think about this, that Newt has some female issues, some female problems. There seems to be a little pattern that we have all been, it hasn't really just emerged, but we've been exposed to. Does Newt, well, let me ask all of you, how do you think Newt feels about women generally? Liz, what do you think?
Oh, you want to go to me first?
Yeah.
Clearly, romantically, he has issues. I think that he's ragey. I think he's got to literally has to deal with his rage. I mean, when they're having interventions, when he's, in Congress saying you're ruining the party because you're out of control. I just think he's an out of control human, and he does seem like a sexist creep. Actually, yeah. I don't know, but certainly I get that.
But I mean, and Amanda, let me ask you this: that he's been married now several times, and we don't like to wade into people's personal romantic things. It makes us all uncomfortable. But what's your take on the pattern that you see that has emerged, and what really was exposed internationally on CNN that John King was slapped for?
Well, it's definitely uncomfortable to wade into people's personal lives, but Newt Gingrich really had no problem wading into Bill Clinton's personal life, for example, and really made sure to expose what happened with Monica Lewinsky, to go after Bill Clinton, and has held himself up as a sort of paragon of moral values. And if that's what you're doing, and in your own personal life you're being a bit hypocritical, I think that's fair game. And I don't think that's exactly how John King framed it last night, and he could have.
Ari, do you think that when you wade into people's political or personal lives that it really is just all contextual? I mean, it felt, Bill Clinton was, obviously this went to an impeachment. Now Newt Gingrich is saying that, how dare you? What bearing does this have on this race?
Well, it's totally fair game. I mean, it was his ex-wife who brought it up, remember. She went to the media and said she wanted to do this, and I thought it was hilarious how Newt blamed John King essentially for his own infidelity. Like somehow John King made him have these affairs. But there's this larger issue of entitlement with Newt, that he thinks he's the most brilliant person in the room, and everyone's always telling him that. And I believe that sense of entitlement also gets to his dealings with women, that he can kind of do whatever he wants, and he's held to a higher standard than everybody else.
Hey, Liz, do you think this is...
I also think...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you watch the dynamic of this one-man wrecking machine that is Newt, and you see he is not surrounded by supporters who he's worked with. In fact, so many people have come on the record who have spent time with him in his job, the workplace, which was Congress, and said, I can't support him, I don't like him, he's toxic. So when you have, people who he worked with do not like him and aren't supporting him, you have ex-wives in varying degrees of health being dumped on the spot. Why would Newt the narcissism is frightening to me, that you would put yourself out on this global scale and say, wow, you know what, everywhere I go, people eventually hate me. What I'd like to do is bring that just to the whole world. It's weird.
I wanna move on because I'm just tired of imagining Newt Gingrich in the sack, frankly.
I'm sorry. We all are.
It's a scary mental image, trust me.
Let's move on to Mitt Romney, and let's get really philosophical again. Is there possibly such a thing as being too rich, too wealthy to run for the presidency? I mean, we've had other rich, wealthy candidates before, but for some reason with Mitt Romney, it just seems to not be a very good thing. So, is he too rich? Amanda, what do you think?
Well, the U.S. presidency in the United States has a long tradition of having rich men elected into office. So I don't think he's necessarily too rich to be president, but you have to understand what people are going through. I mean, Mitt Romney last night talked about the real streets where we live. He's joked that he's unemployed. He's not unemployed. The real streets where he lives are not the streets that most people live on. And so, you know, if you're wealthy, you should own it, but you should also understand what Main Street is going through. You know, understand that people need more time on unemployment. They need more assistance from the federal government. But Mitt Romney's trying to pretend he's the common guy. He's part of the 99% when he is very, very much 1%. When you can make bets for thousands and thousands of dollars, you are definitely in the 1%.
I have this theory that he just can't fib about his wealth. Like, he doesn't know how to spin it in a way that connects to everyday people. In other words, he has a kind of tone deafness about what it means to have hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, we humility, perhaps, and that's odd coming from a religious guy. No?
Let me take this, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I can. I think it's less about how much money he has and how he made that money and how he talks about it now, because he's argued that his experience in the private sector at Bain Capital gives him a unique expertise in terms of creating jobs. But we know that it doesn't. We know that he maximized profits, and that was what he was really doing. He wasn't trying to create jobs. So that's a knock on him already. And then he seems like he's hiding something with his wealth. He's never released his tax returns in his entire political career. He's admitted that he pays less taxes than almost all middle-class Americans. He has all this money offshore. And there's a pattern here where the money is becoming an uncomfortable issue for him, and it's becoming revealing about not only his character, but also his record.
Liz, do you think that Mitt Romney is hiding money somewhere?
You know what? I don't know. I think maybe that dog ate the tax returns, though, and then maybe that's what happened. But what I really think is the bigger issue here is somebody who is the son of a rich guy who never learned about noblesse oblige on some weird level. Because as Amanda and Ari both have said, yeah, we have a history in this country of electing really, really, really rich people. And I know very many really, really rich people who are completely connected and feel really lucky that they made a lot of money, and they're constantly giving back, and they're not uncomfortable in their own skin because throughout the course of their lives, they have really been aware that it's a privilege to make a lot of money and be successful financially, and they don't look to those things as priority. You know, I think you look at Mitt and John Kerry and that weird uncomfortable with their money thing. I think there's a lot of similarities there. But also you have to remember, he belongs to a church that's really insular. You know, the Mormon church is very insular. If you're not Mormon, you can't go into a temple. You know, you're not allowed. And so to be traveling and getting your experience abroad with other Mormons, trying to convert people to Mormonism, I don't think it's a welcoming, open place. I mean, so I don't know that he learned charity without recruitment. I think it's really interesting.
I've heard, and Amanda, let me ask you this. I've heard, that the tax returns may sort of push this Mormon issue front and center, which endangers him to evangelicals. Do you think that that's what this is about? That we'll see how much he's tithing to the Mormon Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints?
I actually hadn't heard that. I think it's more that we will see the rate of what he pays, and he knows it will be a huge issue, and maybe he is hiding something. We don't know. He hasn't released it. His father released his tax returns for 12 years. He took that unprecedented step when he was governor, and Mitt Romney isn't committing to that, even though he often invokes his father during debates and how much he admires him. So right now, I mean, honestly, I don't know why he isn't releasing them and what he's trying to hide.
Mm-hmm. We have run out of time.
Well, it could be, in crazy speculation, what if he didn't tithe enough and he's afraid to release that? Like, what if his tax returns release his income and it's not 10%?
Hasn't been
if you want to put a tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, I think that they've been, I think he's probably given quite a bit, but, you know, that's just my
he was
hunch.
very active
Oh, he's
in the
given a
church. I
ton.
think
He's
it's
given a
probably
ton
good.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, we have to go. We've run out of time. I want to
question.
thank you so much, Liz, for joining us from New York, and Amanda Terkel joining us, and Ari Berman. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Coming up next,